It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Monday, September 30th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. Launching October 1st at 6 a.m., Cowboy State Daily's Jake Nichols is making morning radio cool again. Tune in from wherever you are for the latest news, weather, sports, and in-depth conversations that matter to you. When Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day isn't trying to predict Wyoming's weird weather, he's battling the elements internationally. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi spoke to Wyoming's weather guy about his most recent excursion, which saw him helping other Americans soar as long and as far as they could across continental Europe in a balloon.
He's done the Gordon Bennett Cup before, which is the oldest aviation race in the world, but this was the first time he went international for it. So they launched from a town in Germany, and his job was to stay on the ground, giving weather updates to 3 USA teams that were in the air. And the goal of the race isn't necessarily to reach a finishing point. It's to get as far as you can while staying airborne as long as you can. Just one of the many things that Don Day does when he's not giving us Wyoming weather forecasts.
Day has been involved in ballooning, gas and hot air for over 25 years. He's recognized as an international expert. Well, it took 6 years of wrangling with the courts and lobbying the Wyoming legislature, but finally a new one-room schoolhouse has opened in an area 2 hours north of Laramie, so remote, ranchers call it Little Siberia. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines visited the rural school at its grand opening last week.
The reason they wanted a schoolhouse out there for their kids and other ranch kids is it's on a good day. It can take an hour and a half just to get back to Rock River. And that's on a good day when there's no snow or rain or anything like that. They fought and fought and fought for over 6 years. Claire McFarland, our courts reporter, reported in January that the Wyoming Supreme Court turned them down for the proposal to get this school, but they kept going. They got some legislators behind them, and they got a budget item attached to the 2024 budget, and so it was a go.
It's Albany County School District No. 1's most remote school, a modern iteration of the one-room schoolhouse that was the hallmark of American and Western education until just a few decades ago. Well, along with hundreds of firefighters on the ground, Wyoming's huge summer wildfires have been attacked from the air. Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck interviewed a pilot who drops water and slurry bombs like they're at war with the fires.
At the Natrona County International Airport this past week, we were able to talk to a pilot who actually flies one of these air tanker jets. It's actually a jet that he uses to dump fire retardant on forest fires all across the region. And he told me that, they always look for the heel of the fire, and then they look along the flanks, and if there's a structure on one side of the flanks, that's going to be where they're going to put it down. That's if they're the first ones to the fire. Otherwise, they're following direction from controllers on the ground or another controller in the air.
Challenges for pilots who fly fire missions include the terrain, smoke, obstacles such as power lines, towers, or anything that could represent an impact threat as they swoop in to dump fire retardant from just 150 feet while flying at 160 miles per hour. Claustrophobia isn't a problem for Juan Layden. In fact, he craves being in small, cramped spaces. That explains why the Landerman doesn't just explore caves as a hobby. Cowboy State Daily's Jackie Dorothy explains that it's a passion and a lifestyle Layden has lived for nearly 50 years, a lifestyle that it's taken him to all corners of the world.
To an outsider, it's like, why do you want to go into these deep, dark places? I mean, he talks about turning off the light and it being pitch black. He's even talked about how one caver lost his life because he lost his light. I mean, light is essential when you're in these caves. It's not for the faint of heart. It is a dangerous occupation. And he does caution, and this is one of the things that he really wants people to know, is you need to take care of these caves, conserve them, but also respect them.
Layden encourages anyone interested in caving to contact the National Speleological Society and find a mentor. Well, typical of rural and small-town Wisconsin residents, Chase Melton loves fishing and hunting, and he's used to seeing wolves in his state's great outdoors. So he was completely unprepared for what happened last weekend. He and 2 other duck hunters were surrounded by a pack of wolves in northern Wisconsin and told Outdoors reporter Mark Hines that he had to shoot and kill one in self-defense.
This kid was telling me they're coming into towns, they're getting bolder. They hadn't had any problems previously, but he said on this morning, they were actually surrounded by a small pack of wolves, and he got in a situation where he felt that he had no choice. It seems as though that's going to get cleared as a clear case of self-defense.
Unlike in Wyoming, wolves remain federally protected in Wisconsin, and they can't be hunted. Killing a wolf illegally can come with heavy penalties, including possible felony charges. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Well, here we are starting off the week with fair weather again, but we are going to be a little bit cooler. A cool front is currently moving through the northern Rockies. There's no rain or snow with it of any consequence, but you will notice temperatures not as warm and a little bit of a breeze statewide today and again tomorrow. We still don't see anything really big happening this week weather-wise, but by the weekend, we're going to see some changing weather conditions, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 20 seconds with more news.
When we say community is the heart of Hilltop, we're talking about a team of bankers committed to improving the place we call home. A team that shows up every day to help businesses thrive and gives back to our neighbors through time, attention, and service. We're inspired by the way our bankers give back because that's one of the many qualities that makes us truly a community bank. Hilltop Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
In the mid-1950s, Dr. George Myron Harrison was a small-town doctor in rural Sweetwater County. This meant Dr. Harrison had to do it all, from delivering babies and taking out spleens to making house calls in coal mining camps with his young son in tow. Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker said she first heard about the kind doctor while researching an unsolved homicide.
In March, I wrote a story about an unsolved homicide involving Davida Peterson that occurred in Rock Springs 30 years ago or so. Through the course of my interviews, I met a gentleman who said, "You really need to write about this Dr. Harrison. He was a longtime doctor and he was beloved." And he was absolutely right. So many people wanted to talk about how beloved he was. And he's just a tough guy of a generation that doesn't exist anymore.
For the longtime residents of Sweetwater County, Dr. Harrison's memory lives on as a kind man and doctor who genuinely cared for his community and his patients. Hunters take heed. Bears with huge appetites are roaming the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, eating everything and anything they can get. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that it's more than just the bears being gluttons. Not bulking up enough this time of year can mean life or death for the Bruins.
Hyperphagia is the term for just the heightened hunger in bears, grizzly bears, and black bears throughout Wyoming during this time of year. When the days get shorter in July, their mind triggers and they're seeking out as much food as possible. Yellowstone National Park said that they can eat as much as 20,000 calories a day, especially at this time of year when they're trying to build up their reserves for winter.
Hyperphagia is a crucial element of bear survival in Wyoming, and it comes with a heightened risk for people visiting their habitat. Nobody wants to run into a hangry grizzly in the fall. Chester is a huge roan pack horse from Utah that might have thought he really showed his owner up by slipping out of his halter and going on a 4-day, 5-night solo adventure in the wild Wyoming backcountry. But Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that Chester was found alive and well early Wednesday, trotting around on a county road near Bondurant in western Wyoming.
They kind of tied him up as they went into this area that was too rough to take the horses. They got back down and Chester was gone. He'd managed somehow to slip out of his halter, which was buckled. One of the guys rode all the way down out to where they'd parked the trailer. He wasn't there. And so they went back up the mountain all day the next day. They searched for him. For 4 days and 5 nights, somebody spotted Chester, trotting around on a county road down there.
With an insurmountable language barrier between horses and humans, Chester's solo adventure in the Wyoming mountains will forever remain a mystery to his owners. And based on the success of Cowboy State Daily's morning video newscast, we're launching something new, a morning radio video talk show. The show will air every Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and will be anchored by Cowboy State Daily's Jake Nichols, a longtime broadcaster who's been on the air for decades in Wyoming.
We'll have all the elements of a morning show. We'll talk about news of the day, weather, roads, sports, politics, the whole bit. But it's going to be very much Wyoming. I'm not terribly interested in the stories of the world and of the United States. And I also want to, really explore some of the stories that Cowboy State Daily news team brings in every day. We shouldn't miss these.
The show, which can be viewed on Cowboy State Daily's website, YouTube, and podcasting platforms, premieres on Tuesday, October 1st. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.